7,000 years ago, the first really oceanic people came out of China, and it came out of Taiwan. Then you get to Polynesia, this oceanic country bounded by Hawaii in the north and New Zealand in the southwest, and Rapa Nui in the east. 10 million square miles, bigger than Russia. And it was discovered by these extraordinary people. They were really the astronauts of our ancestors. They were the greatest explorers on the face of the earth.
Unaided by modern instruments, these extraordinary explorers discovered and settled every livable landmass in the Pacific, relying solely on a complex understanding of the stars, the winds, the waves, and other cues from nature.
You know, our ancestors now were only just great navigators, they're great stewards of these islands. The time that the first Europeans came, the journals of Captain Cook talked about, you know, large populations, maybe 800,000. That's the median. It could be even higher. It's approaching maybe the numbers of people that are living on Hawaii today. They figured it out, how to live well on these islands, and I think that is the challenge of the time for planet Earth and all of humanity. It's to figure that out. How are you going to do that? Hokulea is pulling us into a direction of asking the question, are you going to be responsible and are you going to take action? Are you going to do something with what you have? You got a voyaging canoe.
In a generation, Hokulea has sailed over 140,000 nautical miles to reunite the world's largest oceanic nation. Today, Hokulea voyages around the planet with a message of Malama Honua, or caring for island Earth, with a firm belief that blending traditional and modern technologies will help us find our way to a healthier future.
Hokulea, to us, to go around the world, has this enormous potential to go to 40, 50 countries on the planet, to be with the great navigators on Earth. And I'm not talking about those in canoes. I'm talking about those who are doing things to give kindness and compassion to the Earth and those who live on it. Those navigators. We're not going to change the world, but we're going to go and build a network of people around the Earth who are going to change it. And our job is to help them be successful.
Aloha mai kako. Aloha everyone. My name is Nainoa Thompson and I'm one of 3 panelists and very, very grateful for all of you being with us today. And we assume that, you know, many of you may not know much about voyaging canoes and that history. So thank you for the time that we had for the 3-minute video, but I've also want to just give you an eye blink into the history of our home, history of voyaging and so forth. Not so much to tell you what we do, but to tell you why. And so I would like to start this slide presentation. Okay, these are miracles in the sea. This is our home. This is the Hawaiian Islands of the 3 panelists. And they are miracles of ecology and miracles of culture. And but I want to focus on the part that we know, the voyaging. And we can see it in the next slide. Okay. Okay, we're guessing maybe 1 to 2,000 years ago, a canoe arrived. We don't know where because we forgot. Probably for miles in the south, best guess. Tahiti, the Marquesas Islands, 2,400 miles of open ocean away. We believe that it was the greatest feat of open ocean navigation and exploration of its time. But we know so little because we forgot. And other things that we've done. Next slide, please. One thing about we do know is that the Hawaiians in these islands did crack the code. They figured out how to live on these islands. And so we do know that that they were great naturalists, and they had strict rules between the relationship and the kinship of their people and nature. But things happened. There were other changes that came. Next slide. Okay. 1778 would be the chronological time when we know Europeans for sure came here. Captain James Cook brought enormous amounts of changes. It's an eye blink, but he talked about how strong and healthy and how brilliant these people were, that the wealth of their people was water, and and that it was all about life. And he would, those voyages would bring many changes, and it began with a median population 800,000 would be reduced to 1/4. 75% of Native Hawaiians were guests who died in the first 28 years. And then there's a whole chronological history and story about loss of culture, language, of land, of governance, and so forth. We were on the road, the black, shiny road of extinction of culture and language and a people, a distinct, beautiful people. 100 years ago, you would have public schools outlawing by policy culture and language in the schools. Private school teachers could beat you, had the authority. My father, born in 1924, nearly pure Hawaiian, was denied being taught his culture, his language, or his genealogy, because his parents felt that it was the safest thing and the kindest thing for him. That's the education. We were losing everything, and then there would be a miracle, and I'm going to go quick. That first person you saw before was Dr. Ben Finney. An anthropologist would make a phone call to this man, Herb Gavainui Kane, and they would put science and culture and the dreams together, research, and started to change everything. Next slide. They would do a miracle. They would make new maps. This triangle in the middle of the ocean, 3 times the size of the continental United States. But if you add up all the landmass, excluding New Zealand, Aotearoa, and add them all together, you could fit all the islands into 1/3 state of New York. It's the biggest country in the earth, 600 times more water than land. It's an ocean country and an ocean people. We're starting to make our own maps. Next. And then the other miracle was what they built a voyaging canoe, spaceship of our ancestors. They named it Hokulea, star of gladness. It's the same star as Arcturus by the Greeks, and 62 feet long, 20 feet wide, powered by the wind, and it would change everything. Next slide. They needed the miracle to find the navigator. In the biggest country on earth, there are no Polynesian navigators, deep sea navigators that are alive today. It went extinct. But in the small islands of Micronesia, there were a time that we still had 6 masters left. The man you see is the youngest, and he was still strong enough to do deep sea voyaging. His name is Piailuk. His nickname is Mao. Mao means to be fierce. Mao means to be courageous and to be strong. He would come and he would, next slide. And this is the island he's from, 1.25 miles long, half mile wide, 8 feet high, no lagoon. It's our school, the school of navigation called Warrior, the most powerful navigation school in the world. And he would bring that to us. And then he would do this. Here's the map, Hawaii on the top and Tahiti's on the bottom. And then add on the blue line, please. Yeah, all you got to do is follow that to the world's 2 biggest wind systems. They collide near the equator, a place called the doldrums, or the intercoastal marine, or the intertropical convergence zone, where in this collision and high evaporation rate, the cloudiest and the rainiest place on earth. And you're going to navigate just by the signs of nature, a very difficult thing to do. And next slide. And they would leave Honolulu Bay, Maui, May 1st, 1976, first voyage in 600 years. There was fear, there was hope, people prayed, and this crew of 17, heavily laden, left Hawaii to follow a dream. Mao was the leader, Mao was the navigator. Next slide. Arrival. Yeah, I was there. Had to climb the monkey paw tree to see the canoe. There were 17,000 Tahitians, more than half the population, because they maintain their language, they maintain, and they have their orators. They know the names of the great canoes and the navigators, but they don't have the canoe. When Hokulea came, it changed everything. And then Mao would do two things. He would get us to Tahiti to allow the change to happen. And then he'd come back for 25 years, hold us by the hand, pull us the window of time into the old world, the old ocean that nobody else could do, and stayed with us until we learned enough to do it ourselves. But I would argue that this road of extinction got stopped by these pioneers, these people that were before us. None of them are alive today. They need to be in the room. And so what they did, they refilled it with a renewal and what we call Renaissance. And what happened was, Hawaiian language in 1985, there was less than 100 native speakers. Today there's 22,000 because policies in schools change. Hawaiian's first language, and Hawaiian culture is mandated in all schools. We changed laws. You cannot dredge a coral reef now and fill up a Hawaiian fish pond to make rich beachfront properties for those who would gate those communities. You can't do that. Laws change. And it goes on and on. But the change that was most important was the identity of a culture can now replace being second rate with being proud of who they are, because they know where they come from, and they come from the world of great navigators. The next extinction that we start to get into would be that photograph of Earthrise, 1968, Apollo 8, William Anders, astronaut, would take the photograph, first photograph of the rising of island Earth, and would argue that that would be the beginning of the global environmental movement. 2 years later, there would be Earth Day. And this individual is an astronaut, second in Hawaii. My friend and my best friend, and he's my mentor and my teacher. He was the one that started to navigate where we're going to go and to do something called the worldwide voyage. And he loved Hokulea. Next slide. If you look in the cockpit window of Columbia while he's flying, you can see on the bottom right corner, you see the island of Hawaii. There's a red spot in there called Kianak, where Hawaiians would shape these stones that Lacey, his name is Lieutenant Colonel Lacey Beach, smuggled on board the shuttle Columbia, floated it into the cockpit window. And that's where they, on that Kianak, they would carve these stones to build the tools to build voyaging canoes. He floats it into space and goes, "Hey, Naino, I have a present for you." Because the other thing that Lacey loved was the Earth, the island, the spaceship. And he was concerned about what we were doing to it. And this photo's in 1992. And he was so concerned about it, he was saying that the adze represents indigenous knowledge 500 years ago. The shuttle represents the intelligence of the power of technology in navigating our future with these tools, but using great common values. And then, the Earthrise, the slide before this, this is where Lacey really became a powerful mentor. Yeah, he would say, "Naino, you have no idea how beautiful the island Earth is until you see the whole thing from space, but we're changing it. And it's going to change us. And we don't know what to do. And we can't protect what we don't understand, and we won't if we don't care, and we can't do it by ourselves." Then he says, plants a seed, take Hokulea around the world. You need to explore, you need to learn, you need to connect, and you need to share. Hokulea needs to know the Earth, and the Earth needs to know Hokulea. He plants the seed of the idea in 1922, and we wouldn't act on it for 22 years. And I don't have time to tell you why, but the next slide. So he says, take Hokulea around the world. Next slide. it's a rough story. My best friend, I would fly to Houston late September 1995. He was sick with lymphomelanoma. And he made me sit down and listen to him. He said, Nainoa, you need to make me 3 promises. 3 promises. 1, you pay attention to the new language of the earth, things that we've never known. Sustainability, climate change, acidification, hypoxia, dead zones. The list goes on and on and on. Pay attention to the new language. It's got to navigate you and the world into a place that we're going to deal with these issues that we don't understand. Then he said, you promise me that you'll sail Hokulea around the world. And then he said, because you need to help the world build better, different schools. Go build new schools to give the tools to our children to be able to navigate a future that we could not. Promise me, Nainoa, you'll do this. He dies in 6 days. We lost the Starman, but not the idea, not the seed. We eventually, it's a long story, I don't have time, but we would repair Hokulea better than she's ever been. 64,000 miles of volunteer time. Next slide. And we would train primarily young, and you'll see 2 young ones that we knew that we had to invest in a healthy futures for them. Next. And then we would make a sail plan. It would be 37 months, 42,000 miles. It would go to 20 countries. It would be 337 ports. And it was a long voyage, but it was a do. It needs to explore and to learn and to share. And next slide. So we left in summer of 2014, essentially headed west until we got home. Next slide. Homecoming would be the largest viewed event in Hawaii. And what was so interesting about the viewership, it was the vast majority of millions wasn't from Hawaii. So connection, we're keeping our promise to Lacey that we're making those connections. Next slide. Where are we going? We're going to stay home. This image is estimated to be about 22,000 miles up into space. It's how far away you need to get to so you can see the edges of land of the biggest and greatest ocean in the world. It's 62 million square miles. It's more water than all the terrestrial land on the earth can fit into this ocean. It's a universe to itself, 25,000 islands. And we argue that the greatest environmental challenge for today and this century is to protect the oceans, because the oceans give us life. Next slide. So we're going to sail. We're going to go to Alaska first and essentially end up in Russia. And we're going to go the long way clockwise. So we'll be connecting the Pacific Rim with the Pacific Islands. And it's a 5-year educational campaign about the importance of the oceans and why we need to care for them. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. Oh, okay. Excuse me. It's my privilege to, okay. It's my privilege. Is there another slide after this? Sorry.
No, I believe there is one more. It seems hidden. Sorry.
Okay, no problem. No problem. Then we'll end the slideshow. But thank you for your patience for going through all of that. I just need to give you context. It's my privilege to introduce our other 2 panelists. They're extraordinary, and they're young, and they're necessary. Can I bring up Austin Kino? Yeah, Austin is rare, and it's primarily the family's that he's grown up in. His father, his grandfathers, his uncles are all highly respected and honored watermen in Hawaii, fishermen, paddlers, champions, surfers. And so Austin grows up into this as a young boy, and the key piece, he was trained in the ocean when he was young. The relationship was built when he was a young child. And Austin is a graduate of Kamehameha schools. He has an extraordinary resume in voyaging. He's done a number of deep sea navigation legs. He's captain Hokulea on voyages. He is also so skilled that he's one of the few water safety officers that we have on board, and he's our safety swimmer. And so Austin, the reason why he's on the panel is he's chosen his path to take what he's learned and share it through developing on-site ocean sailing voyaging programs for children that is focused on ecology, conservation, and stewardship and sustainability at the community level. So thank you, Austin, for being there. The other panelist is Lehua Kamalu. Was not born in Hawaii. She was born in New York. Parents are both Hawaiian. Father was a nuclear engineer in the Navy. They decided that the best education for them is to know who they are as Native Hawaiians, and brought their it's her and 5 girls, sisters, to Hawaii to school, and couldn't put them in private schools, so they put them in the public schools. Lehua would enter into the second year of the first Hawaiian immersion language program ever. That was, I say, born out of the Renaissance of Hokulea and other factors. She would be a graduate of Kamehameha School, speaks 4.5 languages, fluent in Hawaiian. She would go on to get her mechanical engineer degree, and then she made the fatal mistake of coming down to the voyaging canoes, which changed her life. But she ended up being the first woman solo navigator from Tahiti to Hawaii, our road between our families. She would be the first woman to navigate and captain to the longest of the worldwide voyage, nonstop, 2,900 miles, halfway up to the North Pole, turn right and try to find San Francisco. And she's a Emerson Fellow, and she's an MIT Fellow, and we're honored to have her. So I'm gonna turn it over to them.
Hello, my kako. My name is Austin Kino. Thank you for tuning in today. It's an honor to be here with you guys and share about our project, about the Hokulea. I think I'll just give a little bit of a background about how I got interested or involved in the voyaging canoe, and then I'll kind of let Lehua give her story. So in high school at 17 years old, Nainoa was a trustee, he said, at the Kamehameha schools, and I had heard, like he said, growing up in the ocean, I'd always known about Hokulea. It was something that was large in all of our communities, island-wide, and known throughout the Pacific as a real conglomerate for everyone who loved the sea and loved to really challenge themselves. And so I was always drawn to it. And I was fortunate enough that during high school, there was a group that was starting to kind of get together, like Nainoa said, to be the next generation of students, as it's a very important part of that chain. And I'll never forget, I think the pivotal point for me was we had a meeting late at night in a boardroom, and we were there, dealing amidst our homework of high school and everything. And Nainoa unrolls this little map of the world, on the conference room table. And he said, what do you guys think it would look like to take Hokulea around the world, and how is it going to change the future that you have, not only for yourselves and your families, but for Hawaii? And I think since that time, it's just been an incredible voyage. I've had the opportunity to meet amazing people, amazing cultures, meet some of the world's greatest leaders, and also be able to be taken into some of the most challenging things I think a lot of us have done personally. One great thing I think our teachers like Nainoa and our other captains have done is they've taken students like Lehua and myself into the dark, into that black, where we really need to go to be tested. We can learn voyaging as much as we want in a classroom behind a computer, and we have great resources to share it. But until they take us to feel that struggle and what our ancestors felt, we won't understand really how much of an accomplishment it was. And I don't think that we would have understood that human capacity we have to overcome, you know, when we set foot back on land as young leaders and young navigators. You know, that same fear that we're met with out at sea through challenging conditions, I think our teachers are trying to show us how that same principles of how our ancestors navigated that fierceness of Mao can be applied to all the challenges we're going through as young adults in today's world too. So it's been a privilege to be a part of the project, and I can't wait for the next journey. So I'll let Lehua go ahead and kind of give her intro. Mahalo.
Thanks, Austin. Aloha, everyone. I'm Lehua. I'm the Voyaging Director at the Voyaging Society. Not quite mechanical engineering, but just as, or perhaps for me, even more rewarding and enjoyable spending my time doing this. I started here just a little over 10 years ago when we began training in earnest for our voyage around the world. And we left on the first trip. Austin, Nainoa, and myself were on that journey in 2014. So there was almost 5 years of dedicated training before we even were able to step foot on a deep ocean voyage, which was the first time I got to experience that. And to say once you do that, you are always part of the voyaging community would be an understatement. I think I've continued to do it for all these years. It is definitely something I believe brings together a very diverse community and somehow remains very grounded in a cultural practice. And so we really take a lot of pride and a lot of discipline in ensuring that what we do is not just for ourselves, not just for our crew and our community, but for everyone that we get to reach around the world. And I've learned so much about certainly my community, about Hawaii where I live, about, I don't know, how our voyages get to inspire education and learning in different communities. And it's always really driven me to continue making sure that this is something that keeps going and that keeps allowing newer and younger and a wider audience to experience voyaging in many different forms. So I guess that's a little bit of my motivation behind it. I know many of you are probably tuning in from Hawaii, but as well as the Pacific wide and around the world. And we're really thankful that you took this time to hang out with us for a little while, despite all the things that I'm sure are demanding your time. And I know we're going to get into some really interesting questions. I hope that we can answer just a few of them in this short time that we have. But know that we will try to keep answering these, hopefully on our website and maybe even beyond that in coming voyages, as they're really amazing questions that remind me that the work we're doing is incredibly valuable and interesting and something that so many of you are interested in learning more about. And that's why we're here. So maybe now that we've given you a brief introduction, I can start off with a few of these questions that have come in. I know a number of you sent some in ahead of time, and right now I know there's a Q&A as well that you can send in a question towards. Maybe Austin, I mentioned you were on the very first leg of our worldwide voyage and you've sailed many voyages since then, training, learning, and really developing as a navigator. And so I see we have a question from Alexis, and she says, if you were to share one pearl of wisdom from your experiences navigating our planet, what would it be?
Oof, that's a big one, navigating our planet. There's one thing I remember about Nainoa telling us, I didn't have the opportunity to meet Mao and some of these other great navigators. And amidst all the other just real practical things we needed to learn, right? How to map, how to be able to tell speed, learning over 200 stars, learning the functions of a canoe and all that, learning how to manage a crew and resources and provision. Out of all that, I remember I'd always really listen intently because I never got a chance to meet him on the real soul behind on our teachers like Mao. And one thing that always stuck with me is Nainoa is one of 5 graduates of Mao into a class that's called Po Navigator, so Master Navigator, and they had this beautiful ceremony that acknowledges their graduation, and a part of it that there was a bracelet, and in the bracelet there was there was 2 pieces of coral. One was a white brittle piece of coral, and that reminds all of us, I think, as leaders, that we need to be able to be kind, to be courteous, to be able to, on the canoe, to see who is not getting along with one another, who needs help, even in nature, who needs healing. And right lashed next to the white brittle piece of coral was a black piece of coral in their ceremony. And that's probably I think one of the harder things on the island that they use for tools and things. And that was to remind the navigator that they need to also be fierce and fearless, and to be able to know that they have to make that decision when no one else on the canoe can, and they have to be able to own it. And I really took that lesson back to land so much. And I really, when I can see that in our leaders in our community who can carry that duality with them, that they can be kind and compassionate for the planet, but they are able to have the courage to make decisions and to make actions, and to not just, point blame and let the earth continue to have. I always see that as a real pearl of wisdom from how we can navigate planet Earth towards real change. And I really think that that's a gift from our teachers that taught us how to navigate with that spirit.
Thanks, Austin. I'm reading rapidly through those questions as fast as I can. Maybe even
ask you some then.
Maybe Nainoa. We have a lot of practical questions, of course, about sailing and day-to-day life on board. I know we'll try to share some of that. I see. Maybe this question is going to be from Jorge, coming from New Zealand, I believe. And I know we have plans, and right now in our isolation, we are making more plans for the future. His question is actually a little bit about how does someone step into navigation or the path of a navigator? Is that a place that everyone can be in? Is that a place for everybody? Are there age limits? And what happens if you're not Polynesian or not Hawaiian? Is that a factor?
Race is not a factor. Kind values are. When the voyage went to San Francisco, we had a Tahitian, Okinawan, a Korean, and a Hawaiian navigator alongside Lehua. That was intentional. I think the world needs a new culture defined by different metrics, that it's not so much about color of skin and race, but it's about values. And it's the kinds of values that bring us together as human beings and humanity. The navigators that we need all kinds of navigators. Mao told me that your job is to find your way out of the storm. And guess what? We're in it right now. And it's so fierce. We chose to put the sails down, tie it to the deck. It's so fierce, we can't do anything because nature's taken over. And this storm is not a new storm, it's an old one. It started over 200 years ago, and we created it. And then there's gonna come a moment in time when there's gonna be that first crack the navigator sees of that first blue light of the storm passing by, knowing that you can sail again. But the question is, where are we going to go? What's the sail plan? Are we going to choose to go on the one we just came from, the yesterday's sail plan? If we do, we will throw rusted anchors behind us. That will drag us down. It'll take us into those broken promises and those dead ideas, and it'll take us back to the way we treat each other with fear and distrust, and it will take us back into a path that we essentially know for sure that academically and scientifically, we can measure it's not going to work. Or we could have the courage to change the course. That we could look at humanity and its brilliance and the power of young people and look at us coming together around those common values that will build a better world. And I would argue that, you know, we're in the race between those who are doing what's good for the earth and those who are taking it away. And I would argue that that we are in the midst, when the storm clears, to understand that the world has changed and our sail plan needs to change. But we should be really, really proud that there is this whole issue of ocean elders creating this town hall opportunity is to bring forward the thousands and thousands of navigators we've seen around the world that are navigating this planet to goodness. And in that leadership are millions of people, the greatest human movement ever about loving and caring this earth. And so, you know, I think we need navigators. I think navigators are defined by good schools and good school teachers. I think navigators are going to be defined by commitment to young people. Austin and Lehua are a part of a large movement in voyaging of young succession leadership that is way more equipped to navigate a future better than us. So I actually can't answer the question fully because I think that in many ways I'm too old, and that we have to turn the question back over to you, Lehua, for you to answer.
Yeah, thanks, Nainoa. And I think, you know, thinking back to sort of my motivation for working here and for volunteering and for continuing to study and do this work, it's so much more than something that we see that just reaches our wonderful community here in Hawaii. It is well beyond that. And here, I think we always grow up in what's called the melting pot, and everyone really takes part in what I just call the culture of Hawaii. And so I definitely think everyone is really supportive of the idea and really on board in understanding that the whole reason why we voyage is because we respect the many cultures, the many places and people that we get to visit. And that's what really allows us to experience the world in a very unique way and bring these wonderful stories home again. And it's all based in that mutual respect of one another and where we come from. There's such a diverse range of questions. They're scrolling faster than I can read them. And maybe to go on something a little lighter and maybe something that a lot of our children who are tuning in can maybe experience a little bit. So it says here, Hakeem, who's 10 years old from Chicago, is asking, what do you eat on the Hokulea? And maybe I'll add to that and say, what's your favorite thing to eat on the Hokulea?
So we pack all of our food ahead of time, and then for most of the legs where it's acceptable deep sea, we fish the whole time. So as soon as we catch fresh fish for the crew, that's usually our favorite meal. We can sometimes if we get a couple fish at a time and we want to make sure we use all of it, we'll even dry some of it to preserve it. But it kind of one of the most important jobs in the canoe after the navigator is the cook, because that's what keeps everyone's spirits high. So I think for me, my favorite thing to get to eat out at sea is fresh fish. But otherwise, you know, we've been we'll pack all our food ahead of time, and that's even a really cool part of the voyage that people from Hawaii, that our community has now started to rethink about. That maybe about 5 years ago, where we might have gone to Costco and provision everything, now our communities are starting to say, hey, we want to build gardens, we want to learn how to can stuff, we want to learn how to keep it safe, so that holistically, not just on the ocean but on land, we're kind of returning to these voyaging traditions about preparing. You know, so a lot of our schools now throughout Hawaii have, they call va'a gardens. So they're growing plants and things that we could take on a voyage with us, or that they can learn about. So I think over time, you're going to see a lot of the things we bring on the canoe hopefully come out of the ground here in Hawaii.
Awesome. My favorite thing is chocolate, and I sneak it into my bag. Oh gosh, so many wonderful friends that we met around the world are asking questions all the way from Virginia to the Great Lakes to Raiatea. It's so hard to just pick one. Maybe Nainoa, not to put you on the spot here. A lot of questions, maybe I can't pick just one, are talking about letting us know what the plans are for the future of the Voyaging Society, upcoming voyages, and a few actually around whether or not we'd be interested in sailing to Peru.
Oh man, okay. Well, you know, I don't want to take up time because we went through the sail plan. We're training for this voyage to circumnavigate the Pacific as to help this global movement move forward to protect what matters. And so you know, I've already talked about that. Peru, you know, Peru ancestrally and linguistics, and even to some degree, the issues of botany has such a strong, we know there's a connection between South America, North America, Alaska with the Polynesians. We know that genetically, we know that through all the modern sciences, and we know it through linguistics. So there's no question. The question is, Peru is a very, very special place. It's deeply rooted to us. It's connected. All I'm going to say, we're going to try really hard, and we don't know. We're trying to get to Peru for sure. It's going to be whether nature lets us do that, because the prevailing winds will be coming from North America south, but the winds are generally south in that part of the world in South America. So it'll be a headwind, and it's very, very difficult to attack hundreds and hundreds of miles. But we need a pilot from Peru that really knows the coast, because we know that we can play the thermals off the land if we stay really close to the coast. So I love that challenge, because mathematically you can't do it with the sailing characteristics of Hokulea, but I know there's brilliant people from that place. And so my response would be, if Peru could, if they choose to gift us with with those individuals who know that place, who know the winds, who know the oceans, that can help us make decisions that we can't about nature. And I bet if someone will come with us to help us, to gift us, I bet we make it. I bet we make it. And it's kind of good not to bet against Hokulea, because a lot of people do, but she tends to get to where she needs to get to. Sometimes we don't know how she does it, but we just honor it.
Hey folks, not to jump in, but we have a couple of hands raised, and one, I think a friend of ours, as far as enthusiasts realm can be. I want to call on Jean-Michel Cousteau, if you don't mind unmuting your line. Jean-Michel, you can unmute at the bottom left to ask your question. Go ahead.
Well, Nainoa, it's so great to see you and your friends. And my question to you to share with the world, after what you've done, what you are passing on, what is your message to the planet, to the human species? What do we need to do to continue having the privilege that you've been sharing with us, and that we all human beings need to take care of and protect? Nainoa, thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Michelle, you make me cry, because what we need to do is do what your father and you and your family, your brothers, your mother did for the whole world. There are only 2 programs that I would come home to watch, and it was the Ocean World of Jacques Cousteau. So you have no idea, Jean-Michel, how much impact you and your family has done to all of us in voyaging. And I say that we need to do what you do. Be courageous, explore, bring people together, bring brilliance, bring intelligence into the fold, get it into classrooms, get it into living rooms around the world. It's all about education. Because we've been sailing a voyage for 200 years because we didn't know what the impact we would have on ecology or culture or climate. But now we know. And so we need to do we need to just jump back on board what you, your father and your family already started, that brilliance, that it changed. I don't know how we'd be able to measure where we are today in terms of our intelligence without your family. So Jean-Michel, I love you. Don't thank me. We want to thank you. And my whole thing is about really recognizing how privileged we are. I mean, imagine you're on this earth, the greatest designed and engineered, we call it va'akaulua, deep sea voyaging canoe. This canoe that is engineered into such perfection. It's rotating on its axis at 1,000 miles an hour. That rotation causes Coriolis, that causes circulation, that causes, allow us to have a whole system of oceans around the whole world. And it's going, at this time, this moment, tomorrow, we'll be 1.4 million miles around the sun. And then at this very same time, and this sun, it's this relationship, we're in the perfect zone, the Goldilocks, where we can have a temperature that we can live in, and we can have a planet that has 70% water. It's all about the water, but in the zone, water is liquid, but it can turn to gas, it can create rain. The circulation processes can move water across the planet. It's a whole amazing voyaging canoe, an extraordinarily balanced, and we're going 1 million miles an hour from the galactic center. We are voyaging on this earth. We can step outside after this town hall thing and enjoy the sunlight, but there's no other place you can do that. That we have protection by atmosphere from radiation. We have magnetism that deflects solar storms, and the list goes on and on and on. We have a large moon that will create and help with tides and stabilize. We have a 23.5 degree angle to the sun, which creates seasons. It's like us to start, Jean-Michel, to understand we are on the spaceship Earth, but we're also on the spaceship of natural miracles that do not exist anywhere else. So why mess with the balance? And so I start there. If you're asking about the earth, I think humankind needs to just understand the privilege and the right and the responsibility to take care of the balance. Again, please, love you, Jean-Michel. Thank you for being here. But I need to honor your family and all that you've done for your whole lifetime. Thank you.
I love you too, and thank you a million times for what you're doing, not just for me, but for thousands and thousands of people on the planet. And I hope we're gonna have a continuing message going on at this time with the climate change, with the elections coming up and so on, for your message to be passed on more and more and more. I'm gonna celebrate 75 years of scuba diving. 75 years since my father put a tank on my back and pushed me overboard when I was 7. And I will never stop, and I will come to see you, and maybe we go diving together.
Yep.
Thank you for what you're doing. I love you. Goodbye.
Love you, Jean-Michel. Love you. Thank you.
Wow, folks,
Wow.
I think we, wow, indeed. I think we've got another hand up from a friend of all of ours, and I'd just like to briefly call on Liz Taylor. Liz, let me have you make your comment here. Go ahead and unmute at the bottom left. Liz, if you can hear us, just unmute. There you go.
Actually, it's Sylvia.
It's Sylvia. I had a feeling you might be there, Sylvia. Go ahead.
Oh, I think because Liz set this up for me. So I was waiting for Liz to speak, but here I get to salute you. Nainoa, that crack in the storm that you spoke of, I think I'm looking at it. The two who share the space with you and you, it's all about the light that you bring, the knowledge that you bring. What we now know that neither you nor Jean-Michel nor anyone could know when we were kids, that the two that are there with you have grown up knowing what Earth looked like from space. They know that we're on a canoe in the midst of a very unfriendly universe. This is it. And so I just want to say aloha and thank you for doing what you're doing. And I think we're sailing right toward that light. And it's because of what you're doing, because of what all three of you are doing, and that wave that you're creating, that others are swept up in this, and I'm one of them. And I want to see what's under your canoe and take you there. That's
my God. I mean, you know, Mao would tell me a story when he was 5. His father would take him on the voyaging canoe, the ways to make the canoe go up and down. He'd get seasick. His father would tie his hands and throw him overboard, and that he would throw him so he can go and drag him behind the canoe at 5 years old so they can go in the ocean. And so when he goes in the ocean, he can go inside the wave. When he goes inside the wave, he becomes the wave. And when he becomes the wave, he becomes navigator. If that is true, then this Sylvia Earle, who had the generosity alongside Jean-Michel to join us today, she is the wave, because she is one of the most influential individuals in my life, because she sets no boundaries for courage, and she sets no boundaries of fearlessness to stand up for what's right. What Sylvia and Jean-Michel do, they are willing to fight for what's right. It's time to fight.
Got that right.
The thing that's right, the way we can. We're sailors, and we will be honored, and we always are, Sylvia. And thank you so much for being the, no. You are the crack in the storm. You are the blue light of fair weather. You are the way. We follow you. We follow you, and we're honored. So thank you so much for being a part of this conversation.
I'd be happy to be dragged behind your canoe. Let's go.
Let's go. Let's go. I'm so excited.
This is great. Thank you for everybody joining in. Austin, Lehua, I want to bring you back in, and I want to give a challenge to our audience. I'm going to put the hands that are up right now, I'm going to put them down, and we'd like to hear from one of our younger audience members. So maybe a youthful voice out there in the audience, go ahead and put your hand up, and let's see what you have to say. Susan, I saw you. We'll get back to you, okay? I'm seeing a hand from Tina. Let's take a chance there. Tina, can you go ahead and unmute at the bottom left, please?
Hi.
Hi, Tina. Tell us where you're calling from. Tell us a little bit about you and what's your comment.
So I'm actually Skylar. Tina's my mom.
Excellent, Skylar. Thanks.
I'm from New York. And I'm 11 years old.
Wow.
So when Nanoi, when the Hokulea came to New York, no, New Jersey, I saw you about 4 years ago. And I saw you were playing in the Hokulea and I was playing with your kids.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Okay.
I'm 5'7" now.
Wow. Thank you. Wow. Were you on the powerboat with them too?
Yeah.
That's right. I remember you. Thank you so much. Oh my God. I was so worried about them. being out in New York and crazy currents and boats all over. So thank you for caring for them.
I have my boat safety certificate now.
And you're 11?
Yep.
Well,
I got
then
it
you,
last year.
then you need to come with us and help us find our way.
Awesome. Great to hear
Yeah.
from you. Do you have a
Thank
question that you want to add? No? Oh, okay, it's muted. Go ahead, Skylar. Was there a question you wanted to add?
Oh, this is Tina, Skylar's mom.
I think you got excited.
Uh,
Okay, we're going to move on to our next hand that we have raised. Lehua, please, if you see anything that you want to bring in from the Q&A as well. Let's go with Jessica. Jessica, we're going to allow you to speak. Go ahead and unmute at the bottom left.
Hi.
Hi, are we speaking to Jessica or?
Yeah.
Hi, Jessica. Tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and please, your comment or question.
So I'm Jessica. I'm from Hawaii, specifically Oahu. I just turned 14, and I actually do have a question. I was wondering what your guys' favorite part about being on the Hokulea was. Was it navigating, or just seeing other people, or just being with others trying to sail around the world?
Aloha, Jessica. Lehua, Austin, can we take that to you? And then we'll have Nainoa. I saw you. You can jump in after, okay?
Yeah, maybe, oh gosh, my favorite part about voyaging, there's so many wonderful things that I enjoy about it. Maybe the simplest is I get to be outside every day, all day for many weeks at a time. And so if you ever wake up really, really early to go watch the sunrise some days, like maybe since you're on Oahu, you go out to Makapu'u or something and you can see the sun come up. We get to see it come up every single morning, and we get to see it set every single night. And we're out there the entire time in between. It's a little hot during the day, all day, but you really get to step away from your computer and from your watch and your phone and sitting in rush hour traffic, and you just get to be on the ocean, and you are really, really focused on just one thing, and that's making sure you're getting to the island that you're headed to all safe and all healthy. And so I think one of the best things is being in that experience. It's very, very different. Even growing up in Hawaii, where we spend most of our time outside, we can even spend more time outside when we're sailing on the canoe. So I enjoy that quite a bit, and just feeling the rain and the wind, and being connected to that. You got to hear, I know Jean-Michel and Sylvia, who are just legendary around the ocean and taking care of it. And that experience on the canoe really reminds you of how it's all connected and why it's so important that we are paying attention to what's going on in the ocean under us and in the sky above us, and the weather, and all these things need to be taken care of. Otherwise, we don't have the signs that we need to navigate. And so all of that kind of happens at the same time when you're sailing out there. And it's kind of hard to get your head into that space and in that game when you're on land, and kind of, you have to go to school in the morning and all the usual things. So it's really rewarding. So yeah, I definitely like being outside and on the water. Maybe you guys want to add anything
Austin?
else?
I think my favorite thing is just visiting new places. I think I could have traveled on a plane to Tahiti a million times, but nothing was like being able to arrive on Hokulea and seeing the love that people have for that canoe, because they take care of us, and it's the crew, but it's really they see that as their ancestors, right, returning home, and it's so incredible to be able to experience. They take us and feed us and take us to their favorite hikes and surf spots, and no matter where we went around the world, we were just greeted and hosted in such a style that was always my favorite thing, is interacting with new people and new cultures that really love the voyaging.
Okay, folks, I know we're coming up or have just passed our scheduled end time, but this is really engaging. So if our panel is willing to continue on, and if you're willing to keep asking your questions, I think we can spare a few more minutes. What do you think, Nainoa?
We're here to
Okay.
serve.
Did you want to respond to that last question from Jessica?
No, I think Lehua and Austin covered it well. I just want to thank you, Jessica, for taking the time to be with us. And since you're in Hawaii, just look us up. We would love to meet you. Thank you.
What do you say, Jessica?
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, Lehua, did you see anything in the Q&A you want to bring in? Feel free to pull that in. I see Abigail out in the audience. I'd like to try Abigail. Let's have you unmute your line at the bottom, Abigail, please.
Hello, can you hear me?
We do. Yeah, Abigail, we hear you. Can you go ahead?
Okay, sorry. So I'm Abigail. I work at the Vancouver Aquarium with the Ocean Wise. I'm the Indigenous Knowledge Coordinator here, and I got to tune in a little bit after your discussion, so I was just wondering if you guys will be doing this type of talk again, maybe?
I sure hope so. I guess my hope, and I'll turn it over to Lehua and Austin. I hope this is a beginning, a tool that the Ocean Elders have created for us to, the vital road to connections and to communicate. And, you know, I'm echoing what Jean-Michel and Sylvia are saying. This is really important that we have a chance to speak about what we believe is right. So I hope it's a beginning, but I'll hand it over to Lehua and to Austin.
Yeah, I hope that we get to do more of these. You know, I think throughout this whole COVID thing that we've all been going through, to seeing the creativity of how we can connect using technology. And I saw a lot of questions coming in from you about how we can learn, you know, different things, how we can be teaching voyaging. You know, what's been so amazing is since the voyage started, the amount of learning about navigation that's happening in classrooms. All these teachers, once they learn a little bit about what we're doing, are able to use their skills. So I'm hoping that as we progress, that hopefully the Voyaging Society, we can have more tools for you guys so you can be learning about navigation no matter where you are. And then follow along with us too, which would be really cool. So I'm hoping, yeah, we do this more often.
Yeah, I agree. I'm definitely totally on board to come back and do this again. Obviously, this is the first we've made, and we hope that it's everything you thought it would be and more. Maybe even to talk about, you know, the whole motivation for this. It's just one of those really wonderful ways that people thought of to stay connected and stay moving towards our goals and our ideas and planning. And actually, I'm thinking of a couple questions that came in that I think we can actually answer right here. One is from Novi-san in Boston about how our experience in being solitary on a voyage and maybe being a little isolated from each other can get you through difficult times. And then Fia had another maybe similar question that was about, you know, how do you stay hopeful in hard times? And so when things aren't quite going like you planned, and maybe things aren't always working out, you know, how you wanted them to, how do we stay focused? And yeah, this is one way that we're definitely able to do it, to stay connected and to learn things that we maybe didn't even think about learning before, and find new relationships and new skills. Maybe Austin and Nainoa, I don't know if you wanted to answer a little bit on that topic.
I'll go last. I'm old. I'm privileged. I can tell you guys what to do.
No, I think this time of isolation is very similar to the moments that we spend on the canoe sometimes, you know, away from our family and away from one another. But there's also, in all those difficulties, there's also always opportunity, right? I think we have an opportunity, I would see, to be way more observant than we normally would without the distractions. And so I think just during this time, right, of isolation, I'm seeing people connect a lot more with families, connect more just with what nature that they can, you know, get in contact with a little bit. So I would encourage people to try and find, you know, like we do on the canoe when we just have to sit there with one another all day, think about what your ancestors would have done in this time, right? When they had no access to all technology and different things. And that's coming out of it will make us all stronger and grateful for, you know, the time that we do have to interact. Just like when we return to land, you know, we become so much more thankful for being able to see our families and treat them with a lot more aloha than I think when we left. So
maybe even to add just a little bit to that before you go, Nainoa, and maybe even more towards CFB's question was, you know, we definitely plan for hard times. We know they're going to come. We know that storms are coming. We plan and we train and we try to get everything organized before they get here so that we're focused. When we're in it is not when we're trying to sort out what to do. We hopefully have thought about things that get us ready, whether it's, you know, literally on a voyage, taking down sails or making sure everyone's safe. There's a lot of things, and even with the best laid plans, you'll find something new, and you will rise to that challenge and find ways to work together to get through it. So back to you, Nainoa.
Nainoa, if you would make this our kind of final comment, any last recommendations or just words of peace and wisdom that you can offer this group?
Oh my God.
Yeah, no pressure, sorry.
Well, I've been preaching a lot today. I mean, would it be possible? Well, aloha Novi, thank you for your question. You know, when you're in the navigation zone and it's a different space, it's the contrary. That you have the whole universe there. You have the whole global atmosphere there. You have the seabird and the whale and the porpoise and the dolphin, and then you have the wave, and you have your teachers. You have the voice of Piailuk, and you have and your friend Lacey's next door. It's probably the least isolated place that I've ever been in, because of the immersion of and the intersection of nature, oceans, and teachers, and also now this need to put the Jessicas and the other young people's faces in front of the canoe, so we're sailing towards their future. So it's just that's what Mom would call the magic, when you bring all those things and they're with you. My father is my greatest friend and navigator. He is always there. And so I have no words of wisdom other than just gratitude to all of you and to all our special friends, Novi, to Sylvia, and to Jean-Michel, and all of you for being with us. It's important to us to be able to know what we believe, but to also share it. So thank you. And I would rather, because I am old and I told elders have the privilege to tell young people what to do, I'd rather they finish this off instead of me. Austin?
Oh, Nainoa, I'm sorry, I just turned off their videos. Austin,
oh, okay.
let's bring you back. Lehua, you're coming back, surprise. Go ahead and unmute, and final comments from each of you, please.
No, I think the biggest lesson I know ever taught us is you can't care about something that you don't understand. So I would encourage all of you to, if it's nature that you love or the ocean, to get out there and spend time in it. That's what I try to do every day, even when we can during this time. And that's going to be your biggest teacher and your biggest school. So mahalo for joining in today, and thank you for all of your questions. Aloha.
I'll just echo that again. Thank you for everyone who sent in questions, and hopefully we'll get another chance to do this and keep the conversation going. This is a really wonderful treat for us. And maybe we'll even work on trying to answer more questions. We have a little bit of a forum on our website as well that talks more about just some of the day-to-day life on board canoes and sailing, and that can be found at hokulea.com with hope some of your questions answered a little bit. Until next time, though, aloha.
Thank you so much, everybody. What a wonderful panel and discussion. And there's more to come. We hear you out there. There needs to be more conversation like this from a diverse group of age groups and experiences. And that's what we're looking to do here, and why we're happy to bring you these upcoming programs on May 1st, May the 8th, and May 15th. We're coming back with astronaut Katie Coleman. Can't wait to hear from her again. Seabed mining series with Dr. Sylvia Earle, and blockchain series coming up on May 15th. So stay tuned with the Ocean Elders and partners. Here we just want to thank you again so much for taking the time. Thank you to our presenters. We want to direct your attention to the chat. Meant to get this out there a little bit sooner, but there is a couple links and social media information for the Hokulea crew. What a wonderful experience here today. Get in touch, follow the oceanelders.org. Reach out to me. My name is Joshua. The Webinerd is my organization. We're really happy to provide technical and production support for these events. So really looking forward to the next one as well. Follow us on social. The Ocean Elders YouTube channel is available to you as well. Everybody, thank you so much. And we look forward to seeing you next time around. Cheers.